be live. Okay. Let me know when to start recording.
Please, you can start right now because everybody's here. Okay.
All right. So we are live and we are recording.
Okay. I call the City Council Town Hall special meeting of July 29th, 2021 to order at 6:02 p.m. Will everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the city clerk please read the Open Publics Meeting Act?
Please be advised that the City Council of the City of Englewood will conduct a Town Hall special meeting on Thursday, July 29th at 6 p.m. The purpose of the Town Hall is to discuss the draft request for proposals, RFP, prepared in relation to the development of the Russell C. Major Liberty School. Council may go into closed session to discuss items permitted under the Open Public Meetings Act, specifically contract negotiations, litigation matters, personnel matters, and matters within the attorney-client privilege. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act and JSA 10:4-6 et seq. And Local Finance Notice 2020-21 establishing standard protocols, this meeting will be held telephonically and virtually via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to participate in this meeting may do so by calling or clicking on the link below at 6 p.m. Link is on our website, or by dialing 929-205-6099. The meeting ID for this meeting is 875-0704-5348, and the passcode is 775025. Individuals calling into this number will be able to fully participate in the meeting, including providing public comment. Public comments may be submitted by 3 p.m. on the date of the meeting, either through written letter or email to meeting@cityofenglewood.org. All written comments shall be read during the public forum portion of the meeting and shall be subject to the same time limitations for public speaking. Comments shall be noted for the record and summarized. The agenda for the meeting can be found on the city's website at www.cityofenglewood.org. A separate meeting will be used for the closed session. The council reserves the right to discuss and act upon such public business as may be brought up for consideration to the extent that consideration of such public business is not known at this time. Formal action may or may not be taken. Proper notice having been given, the municipal clerk is directed to include the statement in the minutes of this meeting.
Will the city clerk please do a roll call?
Councilman Cohen?
Here. I noticed I was muted.
All right. Councilman Hamer?
Here.
Councilwoman Marin?
Here.
Councilman Rosenzweig?
Here.
Council President Cobb?
Here.
Also present is Mayor Michael Wiles, City Manager Sonia Alves Riveros, City Attorney Bill Bailey, and City Planner, I guess, Stan Slahekta.
And the planner, Stan Slahekta.
And City Engineer Franz Volsi.
Franz Volsi, yes. All right, tonight we will continue part two of our town hall discussions regarding the Russell C. Major Liberty School draft RFP, and how we will start. Stan Slahekta, our planner, will go through the most recent updates of the document. There is a new document, but please, the changes we can discuss as we go through the meeting. And after the meeting, you can download that document if you choose to do so, or if you haven't done so as of yet. And we will plan on having an additional meeting to recap this meeting. And we will let you know in advance when that will happen and post that information regarding that. But any of the questions that you had from the previous meeting will be covered at this meeting. So the document that you currently have is still good as well. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Stan Slahekta. And Stan, you can start from the beginning and go through all the changes that were made and kind of walk through some of the points that are key to this RFP process.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. And actually, what I'd like to do at the beginning is to quickly re-summarize the content of the RFP, and for those people that might not have been at the June 21st public meeting, just briefly indicate what the request for proposal document is and what it is in comparison to, say, a redevelopment plan or other similar types of documents. So Yancy, I think you need to make me the host so I can share my screen. Is that right? Okay, so I should be able to share now. No, you muted.
She's muted. She's muted.
Yeah. All right. Let me see if I can share my screen now.
Wait, I haven't made you
Oh,
host.
okay. Not a problem. Just let me know when you're ready.
Okay, go ahead. Should be now.
Okay, great. All right. Let's see. Good. Screen number 2. Are you seeing my screen now?
And Stan, I just want to add that after Stan's presentation, then we will take questions as we did at the previous meeting. So just in case people want to do that, and you can put your questions in the chat as well.
Great. Yeah, and I just wanted to point out at the very beginning when we talked a little bit about the changes that were made subsequent to the June 21st meeting, and those changes were based on the feedback that we received at the meeting from the public, as well as direction to make those changes by the council. There really were only 4 changes that were made, and again, I'll detail them. Right after I finish summarizing the content of the plan, or I should say the request for proposal document. So indicated on the as you're probably seeing on the screen is the RFP, the cover of the RFP document. And let me just move it. Here we go. This is the cover of the RFP document. And actually, one of the changes I might as well note right at the very beginning, it was noted that all the references to a Liberty School have been changed to Russell C. Major Liberty School. That includes the cover page, all the maps that are included in the document, in the various appendices. All references have been changed to Russell C. Major, and if there is one that still is in that document, it's just because we might have missed it as a global search, and obviously we'll make those changes consistent throughout the document. But I think we've caught everything. So that's one of the key changes right up front. So what a request for proposal document is, and as I mentioned before, it's not a redevelopment plan. It doesn't govern the design and requirements for redevelopment projects within the designated redevelopment area. And the Russell C. Major Liberty School site has been previously designated as an area in need of redevelopment. What the document does, it's really requesting the proposals from a whole variety of different entities, public, private, or some combination of public and private, to send the city proposals for the future redevelopment and revitalization of the Russell C. Major Liberty School site and the school building specifically that's located on the site. As we'll talk a little bit about the document, one of the key things that is emphasized in the document is that when the city is considering proposals for the future redevelopment of the site from the various respondents, the people who are going to be responding to the RFP, the city council, and it's very explicit in the document, has indicated that it will look favorably on proposals that in fact preserve the historic character of the Russell C. Major site. So I'll walk through the key contents of the document. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the details, and hopefully everybody has had an opportunity to take a look at the document that's posted on the website. But we have our basic credits information about what the document is about. This is the table of contents, and the table of contents is pretty self-explanatory. There's some basic information about the Russell C. Major Liberty School site and the building. There's also documents that are referenced in the request for proposal that provides further information to potential respondents about the site, about the building, and some of the prior studies and evaluation of the site and the building that have been made by the city and its professionals. There is a general discussion about the intent of the city with regards to the future redevelopment or revitalization of the Russell C. Major Liberty School site. And as I mentioned, that while a preference is given, or a high preference would be given to proposals that in fact maintain the historic character of the site, that the city, and it's expressed in the document, is open to a wide range of proposals, that it's willing to consider any number of different approaches to the future use of the site, and specifically the additional preference that's identified in the RFP document is that the city will give a preference to proposals, or consider give high consideration to proposals that in fact provide for a community center on the site. So those are two important, I think, intents and interest of the city that are expressed in the RFP document. The preference for a community center at the site, and the preference for the maintaining and to the support of the historic character of the site. But within those general preferences, as indicated, that there is a preference, or a expressed interest in not precluding any type of proposal that ultimately is presented, so that the city ultimately and the community, because there is a very significant and substantial public process involved in the review of proposals as expressed in the there is the intent to determine what is in the best interest of the city, what's in the best interest of the community, and what is the best alternative approach. And providing a wide net and a wide cast in that gives the city an opportunity to determine what's the best proposal in its interests. So there's is a basic intent and preferences that are spelled out. There's some discussion in the RFP about again, about the history of the site, and how the city perceives the importance of the Russell C. Major Liberty School site in the fabric of the community. And that's important for anybody who's responding to the RFP to understand context and understand that. There's then into the mundane nuts and bolts of the RFP, and that is essentially the instructions for preparing a response. And there's some detailed information with regards to what are the submission requirements, what the city is expecting to see in a proposal. And we'll get into that in just a moment. I think there's a couple of highlights there that I think important for the council and for the public to understand. And there's some discussion about the framework that would ultimately be entered into between the city and whomever is going to be the successful respondent. Because ultimately, what will happen is that once a successful respondent is selected, the next step in the process would be to develop a redevelopment plan and adopt a redevelopment plan for the Russell C. Major Liberty School site that is reflective of that successful respondent's proposal, one that has been vetted by the public, vetted by the community as being the most appropriate. And then ultimately there is a redeveloper agreement, which is a contract between the selected respondent and the city to ensure that whatever redevelopment project or whatever approach that is being supported by the redevelopment plan and proposed within the context of the redevelopment plan actually is implemented. So it's very important in the redevelopment process. And the redevelopment process is one in which the city has a significant amount of control over ultimately what happens on the site. That the redeveloper agreement is designed to ensure, because it's a contract between the respondent and the city, it's designed to ensure that the project that's done is consistent with the vision of the community, consistent with the redevelopment plan, and has all the requirements and conditions that are established through the negotiation with the respondent and the successful proposer. And then there's in that context, there's a series of evaluation criteria that the city is going to use in evaluating proposals. And then finally, what's important to note, as I mentioned up front, is that there is a public process. And there's not only a public process for getting feedback, which is ongoing right now, what we're doing right now this evening, on the draft RFP. But once the RFP is issued, and once the proposals are submitted and there's a shortlisted list of proposers, there's going to be an active and substantial public review process to give the public an opportunity to hear the proposers, ask questions, and provide input that will ultimately be incorporated into the redevelopment plan that's adopted for the site. So I just want to highlight just a couple of quick things. I know the council members have seen this, and some of the members in the public who have been at the first public meeting has seen the document in its whole. I just wanted to highlight some of the key things that fall into that outline that I just presented. There's a checklist. The respondents have to make sure that they have all the correct documents and they're following the procedures and the timetables correctly in accordance with the requirements of the RFP. One of the other changes, and this is a change number 2 that we made, document based on the last meeting, the review committee, the original document had the review committee as being city council. Pursuant to the questions that were raised, we also added in that and/or individuals designated by the city council be members of the review committee. And we can make further changes in that if the council so wishes, with regards to being a little bit more specific on either the offices or the individuals that would be participating in the review committee. But for now, it's the council and whomever the council may designate as being the as part of that committee. So there's, as I mentioned, there's general information. We talk about what it's envisioned. There is a very detailed review of the process. There's a schedule. We've added in that the third change that we made is just simply adding in the dates of the public or the community meetings that we just had on the draft, the first one being June 21st, and the second one being held this evening. So it's just simply identifying the specific dates that those meetings were held. There are dates that need to be filled in prior to the actual issuance of the RFP document and the advertisement, the public advertisement of the RFP document. And those are that's set forth in the 1.5, the schedule. And what will happen is we'll, working with the council, identify dates that provide a sufficient amount of time for respondents to review the RFP, prepare a good comprehensive response, and then give the city time to do a full review, an adequate review, including, as I noted, that there is going to be 2 community meetings on the proposed responses prior to a final selection of the successful respondent. And there's a number of technical legal disclaimers and things that are spelled out in the RFP document, which are common to request for proposal documents. Then there's various responsibilities that the respondent has. In fact, they are going to be paying fees that would fund the review of the responses by the city. I don't have to go into those in detail, but if there's specific questions about any of those, I'll glad to answer any questions. Again, I mentioned there's further information about the background of the Liberty School site and the preferences, as I mentioned, the 2 key preferences with regards to high preferences for a community center, high preferences for proposals that in fact preserve the historic character of the site. There's a the discussion of all the various approvals that even once a respondent is required, is selected. As I mentioned, there is a process by the adoption of the redevelopment plan, which is a public process. There's a public hearing and there's planning board involvement in the adoption of the redevelopment plan. The successful respondent would need to go before the planning board with site plan approvals, and actually even prior to that, going before the city council to confirm consistency with the redevelopment plan. So there's a lot of steps that follow through even after the respondent is selected to ensure that the city is getting exactly what it wants on this. Then, as I mentioned, there are requirements in terms of the submission requirements, and there's a couple of things that are important to note with regards to the submission requirements. One of the things that we did ask for or add to the document previously was the requirement for fiscal impact analysis. One of the third new add coming from the June 21st meeting is a requirement for the submission of a traffic impact study as part of the response package that a respondent needs to submit. So when we look at the time frame that we're going to be giving respondents a time to respond to this, we're going to have to we will understand that there'll be some time needed to create that fiscal impact study and also to do the traffic impact study of the proposal, the specific proposal that they may be made. And all that is outlined in section 3.9 of the report, all the information that needs to be as part of the RFP, as part of the proposal. And these pages go into a lot of detail about each one of those pieces of information. And as I said, the next step after that is evaluating the proposals that are submitted, and there are some specific things that are called out for in the response and review. Again, there's a reference to the community meetings that need to take place. There is a reference to the fiscal impact of the project being an important consideration. And so those are listed in section 4 of the RFP document. And again, there's a variety of various legal disclaimers and requirements that are presented in this as well. And then finally, there's some mapping and some further information about the site. There will also be a link made to other documents that provide further background. That includes the State Historic Preservation Office opinion letter, the Russell C. Major Liberty School adaptive reuse study that was prepared previously, the redevelopment study that our office prepared on the resolution designating the site in need of redevelopment, environmental site assessment, some preliminary environmental analyses that has been done on the site, and information from the Englewood Historical Society with regards to the historic characteristics of the site. So those are essentially provided as reference documents so that the respondent has as much information as possible. But the burden is on the respondents to do the research that's necessary and to do everything that it needs to do to be able to submit a successful response to the city, and so the city can review and evaluate it in accordance with the requirements in the document. So finally, bottom line is, this is asking developers, asking both public and private entities that have an interest in the redevelopment and revitalization of the Russell C. Major Liberty School site to submit their ideas and their proposals and their approach to the revitalization and redevelopment of the site to prove to the city that they're a viable entity, that they have all the financial wherewithal to actually successfully do this, and to provide the city with the guarantees necessary to ensure that the city is, and more specifically, that city of Englewood's community is getting the kind of project that advances the goals and objectives of the city, is economically and fiscally beneficial to the city, and ultimately is a benefit to the community as a whole, as a resource of the city of Englewood. So that's that was those. I think I identified 3 of the key changes. I think the fourth one So we had the four changes that were made based on the input that we received at the June 21st meeting. First one is the references to the Russell C. Major Liberty School, which identified we identified the expansion of the review committee to give the city council the opportunity to identify other individuals that would be participating in that. We did identify the dates of the public meetings that have taken place on the review of the RFP document before it is issued. And then we did mention, I did actually mention all four. We did mention the additional requirement to submit a traffic impact study as part of all the submission requirements of the proposal. So that's it in summary. As I said, I haven't gotten to all the details. Obviously, if there's any specific questions that the council may have or members of the public with regards to the document, obviously I would be glad to respond to and answer any questions that people.
Stan, similar to what we did the last time. So I don't know, maybe Yancey could look to see if we currently have any questions in the chat. And we'll let people put their questions in, we'll read them, we'll answer them. And I think that that's the way we will do it, similar to what we did at the last meeting, at the 21st meeting. But if any of the council members wants to speak right now, the floor is yours if you have any comments around this. And
do you want me to stop sharing my screen for a moment? I think that
well, you may want to continue to share your screen, because if somebody has a question to go back, then you would have to get it back. So we don't want you and Yancey to play tag, really go back and forth. Is why we have it here.
And I'm able to check the question, to look at the questions in the
Yep.
chat without.
Are you seeing any there, Yancey?
There are no questions currently.
Wow, how's that? Okay. So Stan, I believe, how many pages is this document? I know you left off on page 19.
well, let's see. There's substantively, not counting the little Roman numeral pages.
Right.
Yeah.
We stopped here. Is there anything beyond this point that you want to cover as well? Some salient points that we have to cover?
No, actually, it's the back page, which is a large.
So it's 19 pages, right? Okay.
That's it. I mean, there's a couple of Roman numeral pages right up front, so it's about 21, 22 pages long in total.
Okay. In your experience with this, and I think you should just give us a little background. I think that would be helpful as well to help the folks that will be participating in this process. Explaining how their documentation should be tightened. What are some of the key elements that should be in it? I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, from a general perspective, the content and structure of the request for proposal document is very, very similar to what many communities who are engaged in this type of process, particularly in the redevelopment context, have present. In fact, actually, very early on, we indicated that there were other models and other communities where we've done similar RFP documents, and we use that as a basic foundation with all the specific nuances and requirements that are specific to the city of Englewood being incorporated in this document. And as I mentioned, because this is being done as part of the redevelopment process, where the site has been previously designated as an area in need of redevelopment pursuant to the local redevelopment housing law, you have an opportunity to be very specific in the requirements and design standards and any other aspect of the development that you feel is important to see incorporated in any final project. So unlike just a standard zoning ordinance, the redevelopment plan, it can be very specific and very detailed in controlling ultimately what happens on a specific site that plan in fact governs. And in this case, that's what would happen here. And as I mentioned before, one of the key advantages of the redevelopment planning process is, in fact, the city does have that level of control. So you have the redevelopment plan, and then further, you have the redeveloper agreement, which provides other controls on the process. My apologies, the doorbell's ringing in the background. So, but I think one of the key things that we need to understand, and when the city is evaluating the proposals that get submitted to it, it's, as I mentioned before, that one of the other aspects of it, when we look at the evaluation selection process, the second bullet in this list is the financial strength of the respondent, including the availability of equity and the ability to secure financing. So that's, I think, one of the important aspects of this RFP process, that you not only want to get a good idea, and you want to select a good project, but you want to make sure that the respondent has a track record and the ability to successfully deliver that project. That's very important. And that's one of the things that is I think, a benefit to the city in going through the RFP process, besides getting in a wide range of potential projects and potential approaches to review. You're getting an opportunity to ensure that you're getting something that is going to actually take place and is consistent with the vision of the community in terms of what it wants to see at that site. So a lot of the information that's required as part of the submission process, or the submission package, is a lot of the background information on the entities that are involved, who they are, who the key individuals are, their track record, their information about those entities, that it becomes a very transparent and open process to comprehensively evaluate what's in the best interest of the city in selecting the developer. And then, obviously, you're looking to get proposals that are very innovative, very creative, and creative not only in terms of the nature of the projects, but maybe creative in terms of the entities. As I mentioned, they could be public-private partnerships that could deliver the kinds of approaches and services that you're looking for. Particularly if there's going to be a community center, there may be private entities and private nonprofit entities that could be associated with this. So it's not necessarily just the physical aspect of the project that you're looking at, but you're looking at, I think, the programmatically what makes the most sense, and whether those programs and approaches can be delivered. And I think that's really an important aspect of this process, is that it's not just what's going to get built, but what is going to take place and how it's going to be implemented on the Russell C. Major Liberty School site. I don't want to go on too much, but I think that's fundamentally, those are the kinds of things. That's the reason why we're asking for so much information in this, and that's the reason why the process of reviewing it is very detailed and involves the community in being engaged in that process of review.
So, Stan, I have one question for you, and then we can move on. If somebody's filling out the RFP and they're not sure they're hitting all the spots, what kind of guidance would you give them if you're saying, a group of folks have an idea and they want to fill it out, and they fill it out to the best of their ability? Do we provide, or is there some kind of guidance that they can follow to make sure that they've really done the best job that they could in terms of completing that application?
That's a good question, Council President. And obviously, any of the respondents really need to do their due diligence and do the research. And actually, that's also a very good test of whether or not you're getting somebody that is going to be able to deliver the product, if they have the insight and resources and perspective that's necessary. They may, in fact, respondents as part of their team might bring in local entities, so that they have that foundation of understanding of the nuances of the community. That's up to them. And I think at the last public meeting, I might have even said that might be something that a successful respondent might want to take into consideration. We have to be very careful during the review process and I think there is a formalized and a little bit more detailed method so to make sure that nobody's given an unfair advantage in the process by if there are specific questions, they need to be submitted in writing. There's a step in the process, I believe. And let's see, going back to the process steps. Yeah, so there's a the deadline for the submission of written questions. There's a pre-submission meeting where a lot of the respondents can attend and provide, have a dialogue about those questions. Pre-submission conference, and then you receive the responses. So once the process starts, you want to make sure everybody's playing on the same level playing field in the respondents. And you might find that one of your decision-making criteria, one of your reasons that you might decide on one respondent over another is that they've taken the time and opportunity to get a better sense of the community, or as I mentioned, may have community entities or organizations as part of their team in delivering a successful response. So it's going to be up there. There's going to be a bit of a burden of responsibility on the respondents to do that level of due diligence.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Stan? Council Judy.
First, I'd like to thank Stan. I think this proposal is tight, and it makes. I'm really looking forward to the process. I would also like to mention to all the participants that are here tonight, just keep in mind that we received a draft, the council had corrections or changes, then we had our first open town hall, and Stan has mentioned that he made an additional 4 changes, and I hope that if you see anything in this proposal, don't be shy about expressing your feelings about it or your advice to us on how to deal with it, because once we're finished with this, the proposal will be ready to go. I would also like to agree with what Stan was just referring to. I think, unfortunately or fortunately, we have to be very careful about how we handle anybody that is preparing the document. We have to be even-handed. We don't want anyone to accuse us of leaning toward one group or another. And that's why I think what Stan was talking about before is very, very important. We're trying to make this as transparent as possible, and I look forward to a successful completion of the project. Anyway, thank you again, Stan.
Yeah, thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Charles?
Yes,
It's
Ken.
Hi, and Stan, thank you again for a very comprehensive presentation. Has anyone reached out to you to date, after the June 21st meeting regarding, further clarification of what you had presented? And I'm not talking lack of transparency or unfair advantage, just has there been interest out there about what you presented, and anyone reached out to you about it?
Are you talking about any entities that might be considering submitting a proposal? If that's the case, no. I mean, I haven't received any inquiries as of yet. Obviously, the proposal hasn't been issued. So, but no, I have not received any inquiries or any other follow-up questions or inquiries coming out of the public meeting, other than what was discussed at the public meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Nancy, why don't we do this? Why don't we start to get, I see there are 10 questions in the Q&A, yes?
Yes.
So maybe this will be a good time to start to get them and read them out, and Stan and Sonia and we can start the process that we did the last time.
I'm going to start with this one. It asked one question and it down the line later, almost like a continuation of it. So I'm going to read the two questions from this, this individual. It says, this community center, will it also be able to be used by our seniors? And then it continues with, meaning the seniors will have a separate part geared to our senior citizens for activities for them.
Well, we would hope the community centers for everybody, right? I think that that's the answer. Whether you're a senior or you're a toddler, we want to make sure it has programming for everybody and for anybody, any and everybody. I would say that. And if anybody else from the council wants to respond to that question, please do. Right, Nancy.
Do you want me to also read comments or just questions?
We can read comments.
So this one says, I think that we have to correct the purchase price for Liberty School was not 11.5 million. We purchased both Lincoln and Liberty for 11.5 million. We have to give investors the right information.
That's fine.
Okay, and then this one also has a continuation, so I'm going to read both questions.
Nancy, and before you read the other one, what was the last part of that? I just wanted to make sure I heard it correctly.
It just says we have to give the investors the right information.
Oh, okay. So if there is a different purchase price specifically, yeah, we can change that, whatever that might be. So we'll look.
Yeah, I think that they're saying, because I think if I understand it right, we purchased that along with Lincoln School at the same time. So I think that was the combination. Okay. So we just got it. We'll get the number for that for Liberty School. We'll just find out what each one of them was. Okay. That's a good. That's a good comment. Fair comment. Yep.
All right, and like I said, this was a two-part question. Are there any financial benefits to the city, such as lower or no interest rates on money borrowed if the city decides to retain ownership? And it continues with, my prior question is based on the property being in a special area of redevelopment.
If we borrow whatever the rates are, that's what we'll borrow at the rates that the city takes on this project itself. I don't know if anybody's going to do anything special for the city. I can only say that. I don't know if Mr. Bailey or somebody else on the council wants to respond to that as well.
If I could just add one quick thing. Once proposals start coming in, it's not uncommon for the municipality to engage their financial advisors to help see if there is, to this gentleman's point, some special funding out there for this, grants, reduced interest rates and what have you. So that is often, once the proposals start coming in, the government entity will bring in its financial advisor to help analyze them and see, hey, listen, this resource is out there to help pay for this, so you can make a really informed decision.
Thank you, Mr.
Bailey. Council President, just to add to that, and depending upon the use of the site, there may be certain funding that is available for that specific use. So I'm not sure exactly where the questioner was leading. He was trying to what answer they were trying to reach, but depending on how whatever the decision is and how we decide to use that property, there may be additional funding that's available for us to secure.
Thank you, Councilman Hamer. Yancy.
Okay, next one is the city of Englewood making any monetary ongoing commitment toward financial support of any idea of a community center via city budgeting or tax increase?
Are we gonna make that? That's a decision we have to do during the budget process. But Mr. Bailey, looks like you want to say something.
Yeah, again, that will be part of the discussion once the proposals come in.
Correct.
As Mr. Slahetka indicated, some of the avenues to go are city retains sole ownership and operation of it. Number two, transfer completely to a private entity to redevelop the site and operate it, or a public-private partnership. So that would also be part of the analysis that goes in once the proposals are received to see what financial impact there is on the city and what benefits could be realized by the city as well.
Right.
And I did want, I should point out too, that when we're looking at the evaluation criteria, one of the evaluation criteria is the demonstrated ability to attract private and public funding in furtherance of the project. So that, as Mr. Bailey has indicated, that's part of the evaluation, and it also, at the part of the ultimate redeveloper agreement, and ultimately what is going to be in the best financial interest of the city.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Hypothetically, if the city only gets one response to the RFP, is the city in any way bound to accept that one response?
That's a simple answer. No. That's no.
No.
Okay. Next. And it says there was a fourth option, making Liberty School a dual project, making it the City of Englewood Administration Building, moving City Hall, Health Department, representative from DPW together with a community center, especially where Liberty School is located. The backdrop of the monument, this should also be considered as we are constantly looking for more space at the current City Hall building.
Okay.
Okay, it said, is there a built-in mechanism to encourage and support minority submission for RFP?
I think, Bill, you addressed this, the requirements that are in the RFP in terms of minority participation. Bill, you're muted.
Bill, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I believe there was something in there to encourage that, to give some type of, and the city has done that in the past, actually, on other projects, where there'd be, we also have just the typical affirmative action stuff pursuant to both federal and state law that encourages that as well.
And there are state mandates with regards to that as well.
Correct.
If they're not visibly in this document, maybe we need to put something in there, Mr. Bailey and Stan?
I'll double check and see if there actually
I'll do a search. Could even reference the state and federal laws that require it as well.
Right. So we can add that if it's not in there.
Yeah, well, and we can do something that's very explicit about that.
Okay.
It says, after we subdivide this property, do we have any limit on what can be built on the rest of the property?
What do you mean subdivide? I don't get it. I didn't know we were subdividing any. We haven't decided what we're going to do.
Right. That hasn't been determined yet.
That hasn't been determined.
Part of once the proposals come in,
then we'll decide what happens.
Right.
Next one is the same person as just continued on, so I'm just going to keep reading both their questions. It says there's a community need for indoor basketball court. I would like to see a full basketball court with hoops, scoreboard, and then continues on with, what are the current city monetary reserves? I would like to see a percentage of the project to include housing and minority business partnerships within the community. If it includes ratables, what a percentage be allocated to low-income families and housing? Have it include as a priority an indoor basketball court that will be for public use and very low fees to Englewood youth.
Okay. Nancy, next.
Okay, I guess this is a business entity. It says, Hi Global Structure LLC from Englewood is present in the meeting. We also sent in our questions via email and dropped off a letter to the office of the city manager. I would like to have a sit down to discuss the project's workshop.
Hmm?
I don't know what projects workshop means.
I don't know.
They submitted a public record request, but I'm not sure about the question. Or
the city manager's on. Does she have
we have the list
indication? Do you have any indication of or any record of this what this individual is speaking of?
The letter refers to a proposal. So any proposals would obviously be done once this RFP is sent out.
Yeah, if that's the proposal, Mr. Bailey should have that in his, to.
Well, we don't
sure.
we don't have proposals yet because the RFP.
Right. But if they're sending letters, right, we should decide where.
I'll forward that to you.
How do we house them, and so everybody will think that everybody's playing on the up and up. That's all I'm saying. So at least we can communicate that we're going to hold them, or is it we're accepting them so that everybody else who intends to do that does the same thing? I don't know. So we have to decide that or whatever,
But again, if the RFP is issued, there's a time frame for them to submit.
Correct.
And as was asked earlier, there are then opportunities for proposers to submit written questions.
Right.
So this is kind of premature because
correct.
The decision hasn't been made to issue the RFP yet.
Right. And all I'm saying is, in case we get another one or somebody else sees that, what do we do? You know what I mean?
Yeah, really, any proposals should come out once the RFP is issued.
Questions should come out after the RFP is. That's what we're saying, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And Council President, at that point, shouldn't we designate someone to receive?
Well, that's what I think. That's what I'm saying, and house those things. That's what I'm saying. In the event that we get them,
they're going to come, I'm sure. But I was suggesting that, as you're saying, we need to have that as part of a process too, because there are going to be questions, and there's certainly questions. Because right now, all we're discussing is an RFP,
right.
And there are suggestions being made as to what should happen here, and specific things that should be on the site. But we need, potentially we need to have someone who's going to field questions and sort of guide this process along until the RFP is formalized and we determine who's going to receive everything, and at least at a minimum there should be some sort of response back stating that no questions are going to be entertained, and if they are going to be entertained, this is how they're going to be responded to, just so that everybody understands what's going on, and no one's thinking that they aren't being listened to.
Right. So maybe by Tuesday at our council meeting, we will make a decision about that. Since, that just came up tonight, so we can give everybody an opportunity to think about what's best, what we should put in place.
And perhaps we can get something from Stan as to past practices,
right.
How these things are dealt with, in your experience, so
right.
that we can issue something. And if people do make inquiries, they're responded to.
Right. And then they're not pointing fingers at somebody for not doing something, so everybody feels that the playing field is level for everybody. So let's by Tuesday be able to have a conversation around this at our next council meeting. I think that would be fair.
And Council President, I'll be glad to
yes.
provide my perspective as
sure.
well. I think there's, if I might suggest, there's really kind of a two-track aspect to this.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is a much more formalized process that I outlined before with regards to potential respondents to the RFP.
Mm-hmm.
Those entities that would be considering responding to the RFP once it's issued. There's also the second aspect is as there may be ongoing questions, from the public or interest, and there probably can be a way in which you can engage have a clearinghouse or a location or somebody specifically that can intake more generalized questions about what's going on to keep the public informed.
Okay, I think that conversation continues on Tuesday. We have to just get our arms around it.
Right.
Okay. Nancy, next, please.
Okay, next one is who makes the final vote on this matter? The City Council?
That's correct.
Okay. Next one is who are the actual voters of the RFP? It says Marin have to omit herself due to her husband being on the board or associated with LGA. I don't know what LGA is.
What is LGA?
I don't know.
You know what that is, Judy?
Oh,
What do you,
Hello?
And what you said.
I'm not sure what they're talking about. I'm not affiliated with any group.
No, they're talking about your husband.
Well, what has,
Well, we can take that offline, but
I don't know what they're talking about.
Mr. Bailey?
Yeah, look, if any elected official has a close family member that's submitting a proposal, they're going to have to recuse themselves. But I don't know that that's the case here.
Right. Okay.
Best of
Next.
my ability and my knowledge, my husband is not submitting anything, so I don't know what they're talking.
Okay. Okay. Next question.
It says, is there are ratables in this project, that the ratables be offered to Englewood families and residents first and have at least 20% be allocated for low-income families in Englewood?
Is the question referring to development?
It seems
Listen.
referring to housing, yeah, as a
Right.
becoming housing.
Well, we haven't.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We haven't decided what's going to be there, so we're not at that point. So I think that question is premature, and correct me if I'm wrong in saying that, right, Mr. Bailey?
That's correct.
And it's again asking, isn't it a conflict of interest for council members, family members on the board of some of these proposals? There's some confusion, Bill, about what boards and who's doing what.
Well, yeah, if a proposal comes in that a close family member of an elected official has an interest in, they would have to recuse themselves. We don't know though, because the RFP hasn't gone out yet.
Next.
With regard to the community center, please include a priority be stated that it must be for Englewood residents' public use. Well, I guess that's.
It is going to be for Englewood. Read that. Say that again. Nancy, say that again.
With regard to the community center, please include a priority be stated that it must be for Englewood residents' public use.
It will be for Englewood residents' public use. All Englewood residents' public use. Why wouldn't it be?
Council President, some community centers are open to others and not exclusive to the residents of a municipality. And I think that might be, what the question is.
You think they were saying exclusive just to Englewood?
It sounds like that might be what the question is.
Okay. Well, it'll be open to Englewood residents' use. I believe that's the goal, to serve this community.
And then there's a clarification on LGA. It's LaGuardia, and it's for, I guess, Ms. Marin's husband is part of some LaGuardia project. I don't know what any of that means.
I think Mr. Bailey was clear what he said, right? He said if a person is on there, a family member or a close family member is on that RFP and is a part of that organization, then they have to recuse themselves, right, Mr. Bailey? That's what you're saying.
Correct.
And I believe to go back to what Mr. Slahector said, all these proposals will be vetted, and whoever is a part of these organizations, you will know. So there's a vetting process that will take place. So if somebody has a relative or something close, whatever family ties there, it will come out because it will be investigated that, as we go through the process, that's part of the RFP process.
And if it's a conflict of interest, Mr. Bailey spoke to it already.
Right.
Yes, sir.
They'll have to recuse themselves. Next.
I mean, there's a lot of the continuation of the questions about the LaGuardia issue and a personnel question, which I don't think we can respond to publicly.
No. We answered the LaGuardia question already.
There's reference to a LaGuardia proposal, but there have been no proposals.
Right.
The RFP, the request for proposals has not been issued, so
Right.
we don't have any proposals.
And then it continues on with conflicts of interest for Englewood residents being on the Metro Community Board as well.
Well, I think the easiest thing right here to answer those questions, Mr. Bailey, is to your point. We haven't gotten the RFPs from anybody yet. And there's a process that will take in place to vet the RFPs. And at which time, you know, if these things come out, we will take the appropriate action.
Correct.
But there will be a vetting process to determine if there's any conflicts with the members that are sitting up here on this dais.
Correct.
This is someone who's apologizing for joining the meeting late. It says, I'm just joining the meeting. I would like to know, in addition to the RFP being solicited for a rec center, what other proposals will this request be for?
I believe it's very open, right? We're looking for anybody who has ideas regarding this property. So it will allow us to make a very informed decision on this property. But again, it's open to anybody who wants to go through the RFP process, and there will be the decision between the public and the council and others to make informed decisions of what they want to have at this location or this site. And anybody else, please feel free to respond.
I just want to add to what you said. The whole idea of looking at what's going to happen on this site is this is the single largest piece of property that the city owns, and it is also a gateway on the western side of town. And whatever gets decided upon for this parcel is and ought to be the highest and best use for this property. So there have been a bunch of different ideas about what should go here. Some people want ratables. Some people want to have apartments come in. Some people want to have a business venture. Some people, and a lot of people, want a community center. And some people want some combination of all of that. Some people want it to be a private endeavor. Some people want it to be a public endeavor. Some people want it to be a hybrid situation. That's a public and private partnership. So the idea of the RFP is to look at what is going to go here, and these proposals, which we're not obligated to accept, it would be made, evaluated, and a decision reached. And if we don't like what comes this way, we're not bound by what's been presented. So I hope that helps to answer a little bit of the question.
Thank you, Councilman. Nancy, please.
The rest is still talking about conflict and personnel matter issues, and there was 2 thank yous. One.
Yeah, well, the conflicts and personnel matters will be addressed once the RFPs, or when the RFPs are submitted for review, and there's going to be a thorough vetting of these proposals. So just like Mr. Selector talked about financial vetting and program vetting, there will also be who's associated with this program. That'll be vetted. That's part of the process. So we're going to be transparent on that, and we'll take care of it. It's part of the process that will be taken care of.
And a thank you to Mr. Hamer as well for yours.
Anything else? Yes.
Moving on with the personnel question.
Personnel issues,
Yeah,
we can't address those in the public. So any other questions you would like to ask, please do.
That was it. I think I missed the first question that asked if we were having a regular public session. Are we? I believe we are.
Because it is a public meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, we do have to open up for public comment. hopefully the Q&A helped answer a lot of the questions anyway, but so the answer is yes. Which if there's no anything further, Council President, you could do that right now if you wished.
We can do that right now while we're at it.
Yep.
Okay. Hold on.
Charles,
Yes.
excuse me. I just want to, since there were a few questions about my having to recuse myself, this is something I'm going to have to look into. I now realize what you're talking about. I just want to assure my fellow council members and you, I have had absolutely nothing to do with this. And I think my husband was involved in discussions before I was elected. But I will find out, look into it. If that disqualifies me, I mean, it's really unfortunate because I can assure all of you that I have never met, never seen, had absolutely nothing to do with those discussions. But I promise you that if it turns out that I will have to recuse myself, I hope I'll be able to somehow take part in the procedure. But since I've been a major proponent of transparency, I am not going to ruin everything by, I just think it's very unfortunate the way, you know, if the way this is worded. But now I know exactly what you're talking about. I don't want to play dumb. And I promise you that I will look into it and see where my participation is going to begin and end.
Okay. Mr. Belly. Yes. Say that again, Yancy? I didn't hear.
A couple other questions came through in the meantime.
Okay, sure. All right, go ahead.
It says, are there any financial benefits to the city, such as lower or no interest rates on money borrowed if the city decides to retain ownership, as this is a special area in need of redevelopment?
Mr. Belly, I think you answered that before.
Yeah, that was earlier. I think
Right.
we'd addressed that when it comes down to it, or the city's financial advisors and grant consultants can look into special interest rates, programs, funding that's available at the state and federal level.
Okay, and then a comment, please only plan for a recreation center.
So, Mr. Belly, we can go to, if we don't have any more questions, we can go to open session.
Yes, sir.
Stan, can you make me host again, please?
Yeah, all right. Let's see, what do I need to do?
Go to under panelists, go to my name, and then just click make host. Under
okay. Let's see, make host. You are now the host. I'm making you host.
Okay, so we're done with the share screen option as well?
Yes, I would think so, Nancy. Not if we have to share screen again, we'll get Stan back or something, but I don't, not unless you want to do it like you're the host now?
I'm the host now, yeah.
Okay, all right. So let's open this up to public session.
2 minutes.
Anybody have any questions, name, address? You have 2 minutes to talk about the meeting tonight and the comments that were made, and any comments about Russell C. Major Liberty School potential project.
Okay, first is Nagayu. Sorry, I always mispronounce that. Matos. Go ahead. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay. Thank you, Yancy, for asking all the questions. I think I got my answers. The only answer I didn't get was what are the current city's monetary reserves?
Ms. Alves, do you want to answer that question? Do you know off the top of your head?
Could you repeat that again?
What are the city's monetary reserves?
I'd have to look into that number specifically.
Right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, next is Diane Jansen.
Hi, Diane Jansen, 589 Ridgeland Terrace. As you know, and as I've said before, I strongly believe that the RFP and the proposal should be limited to a dedicated full-time community center. I believe that the city should keep a majority stake in Liberty School, and I request proposals that focus on innovative public-private partnerships that could also attract federal, state, and foundation funding. Right after the Derek Chauvin case, and he was found guilty of the manslaughter and murder of George Floyd, the Minnesota Attorney General stated that this verdict reminds us that we must make enduring, systemic societal change. Nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. While Englewood is diverse, we're a divided city, separated on so many levels: race, religion, cultural backgrounds, socioeconomics, and even by railroad tracks. We can initiate positive change and come together through a community service center. And at a recent Englewood Board of Health meeting, a Rutgers consultant had community center as a #1 priority in the recommendations for improved, sustained, and more equitable health outcomes. All Englewood City Council members have publicly stated their support for a community center. Now, all the residents of Englewood need a community center, so this is where we as a diverse peoples can come together, get to really know one another, and positively grow together in our quest to address racism, anti-Semitism, all the other isms, and overcome their barriers. It's within our grasp right here, right now. Englewood Council, please do not let it slip away.
Thank you, Yancy.
Okay, next is Pamela Major. Ms. Major.
Yep. Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank council and the consultant for making the adjustment and stating it as the Russell C. Major Liberty School. Thank you very much. And I want to 100% agree with everything that Diane Jansen just said. As a product of Englewood, I recognize that even with the stellar education that I received, it still did not stop racism. It did not stop classism. It did not stop, again, as Diane Jansen put it, the other isms. And so as I look at the city of Englewood and I look at what it doesn't have, this is what it doesn't have. It has housing, it has new housing, it has old housing, it has businesses, it has so much, but what it doesn't have is a real state-of-the-art gathering place for the community. And I believe that in the development and implementation of a community center, this is something that is so lacking, it will fill a void in the community. I don't see anything else that Englewood needs. And on this level and magnificence of property, having a community center can begin to solve issues that I think everyone knows are ongoing. And so I, again, stand with Diane and hope that with all of the changes that you have made to the proposal, and they have been not many, but they have all been significant, that you would make this one last step and say that the proposal that you will select is once and only for a community center. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next.
Okay, next is Ainsworth Manon. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Okay. All right.
All right. William Street, Englewood. Everybody know that by now. Just one thing is there's a lot of conflict of interest that is in the background of this thing that's going on. And second of all, we just finished hiring this new city manager. And one part of the thing, the council's in charge of hiring the city manager, right? We're hiring people that we had this position open for so long, but then she's applying for other jobs. Why is these positions that people get is like a revolving door? We need to start hiring people that's going to stick around and want to be here, not just come here for a stepping stone and then move on to another. Because then we're going to be in a couple months, we're going to be in the same situation that we were in before. So I got to look at the council. You guys make this decision. This is someone you brought in to help situate this situation with a city manager, and she's already looking for other jobs. Why is she even in this meeting right now? We have people that's coming in making decisions, and they're going to step out the way in 2 seconds. She came here and gave the police raises for overtime, and then you're going to leave. That makes no sense. You guys are hiring these people. So I got to look at the city council. What are you guys doing?
Ainsworth.
What are you guys doing? What's up?
Ainsworth. We can take this offline. Give me a call. This is not the place. This meeting is just to talk about the thing.
It goes with this too.
Let's talk about.
That's a part of the problem.
I got you.
With
but
this too.
Listen,
because she's involved in something that she don't.
Okay.
She has no interest in if she's
We're
leaving.
not talking,
It makes no sense.
I hear
makes
you.
no sense.
I hear you. But
we have
we're not
people
talking
making
about
decisions for our community that might be leaving in 2 months.
Ainsworth, I got
Come
you.
on, man.
We're talking about. We're not talking
blind,
about personnel issues. Okay.
It matters because these are the people that's helping making these decisions. What do you mean?
Listen,
it makes sense. It makes sense.
But we can't talk about that.
You guys gotta wake up.
Well,
I'm saying it because y'all need to hear it. I don't care if y'all don't want to talk. I'm saying it, and she needs to hear this too. Do not come to our town and act like you want to help and then go apply for another job.
Who's next?
That was completely inappropriate.
Yeah. Nancy, who's next?
Next is Peter Jansen.
Okay.
Peter?
Good evening, Council. Thanks for 2 minutes. Pete Jansen, 589 Richland Terrace. Mr. Schlechetka described 2 preferences in the RFP. They are to be placed on preserving historic character of the building and its use as a community center. And that is good news because that is in total alignment to our master plan. When all of the council people took their oath of office, they swore to uphold and support the master plan. And our master plan calls this out. And I thank Councilman Hamer for going and mentioning how the location the school is at a crossroads. It's a gateway to Englewood. It's a key piece of property. We don't have any other large pieces of property left. We can't go over to the city municipal building. It's not big enough for a community center. This property at Liberty School is 2.25 acres. It has 106 on-grade parking spaces. And if you ever attended a Board of Adjustment meeting, they can do some black magic to turn that 106 into 150 without changing the footprint. And it's right only a block away from McKay Park. That's our largest park. Everything's there. Basketball, outdoor swimming, winter hockey, and skating. There's so much room in that building. I went through and looked at the size of the building. There's room for a full gym, weight rooms, locker rooms, multi-purpose space, meeting rooms. You could have your council meeting there. You could have a special room just for your council meeting. Meeting rooms, music rooms, art studios, dance rooms, a theater. And you can have some offices for people to operate the space. Please, let's do the right thing for Englewood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Jack Silverman. Jack, unmute.
Hi, Jack Silverman, 320 Murray Avenue. Good evening. 2 questions. One of them has to do with the project at Liberty School, and I got here late, so you might have been talking about it already, so forgive me if you've already discussed it. I was hoping to find out if one of the proposals or if the city is going to be investigating something that I've mentioned certainly to Mayor Wild more than once, that I think it's an old idea from a while back, that they would, if you did a community center / arts center situation on floors 2 and 3, the basement and part of floor 1 would be used, you'd move over the City Hall and take the funds from selling City Hall, and that would help pay for the the renewal of Liberty School. So it's probably a better use. I know there's been problems with the basement at City Hall with water infiltration, etc. So that building is probably be used and sold to a developer. So if you do decide to go with a community center, I hope you'd really look at at least the numbers and maybe put that out there, Mayor Wild, to sort of find out exactly if something like this can be done, and makes financial sense to help do this. I mean, if you can answer at least this quick question, is there something that's being looked at as potentially moving City Hall? Can someone answer that?
can address it if you like, Mr. Compton. Is it all right?
Yeah, but this is not talking about, this is all about Liberty School.
No, I understand that.
If we're gonna talk about City Hall, we can bring that up on Tuesday.
Well, it has to do with, my question is having to do with Liberty School because it would help pay for the project. So it really is directly related to Liberty School, but utilizing City Hall as an extra asset that it'd be beautiful to bring everything there. And you've got, you know, such a large property and you can utilize as part of that and have the rest of it for community, you know, some common rooms that would not be used. You'd have people there all day long too.
It's a very clever proposition to kind of pull a lens back and look at the entire city topography. The purpose of this evening, however, is to look at the Russell Liberty School and to make sure that we get the best product there. Whether or not we want to then engage whatever developer or project or community center in helping us figure out what to do at City Hall and move that maybe across from the public safety on stilts with the parking, could be a conversation once the council decides in the best interest of the city, what's the best project and the best vendor to bring us to that community center there. So that, you know, it's part of an ongoing conversation, Jack. It's a big thing to me, but the design of tonight is to focus on the Liberty School. After that's settled, or while that's being settled, I think it would be wise to concurrently do this. Years ago, when I served in 2004 to 2010 as mayor, we had a different kind of look at Route 4. We did a lot of multiple projects at the same time on the west side of Palisade Avenue, on both sides of Route 4. We have that capability. And if this council, and I believe, is very genuine and dynamic, then that can be deployed at the same time. But it's 14 plus years. We need to do something with the Liberty School building now. To gum up the works and slow down the momentum that the council has developed now is foolish. And just the last thing is, the projects that have presented to me privately, they're all going to be presenting to the RFPs and so forth. They need to have a financial engine or they won't be built. If it doesn't bring revenue and monies into our operating accounts, it's going to be an issue and we'll be back where we started. So, you know, stay tuned. Keep your pencils sharpened. I say to you, Jack, and everybody else watching this, because City Hall should be on the block, in my opinion, as you articulate, but that's not for this evening.
Next is Naida Wharton.
Say that again?
Naida Wharton.
Okay.
Hi, thank you. It's Nada. I understand it's a difficult one. Nada Wharton, 131 South Woodland Street. I just wanted to reiterate the points made by Pamela Major, Diane Jansen, and Peter Jansen about I think it should be absolutely #1 priority, and no consideration should be made to any project that does not consider a community center. The community center for the city of Englewood has been begged for more than 30 years. I've been a resident of Englewood for 40 years, well, 38 years, and it's a central need to our community. And in this time in the United States, it's a central need for all communities. I think that it is a terrible mistake for the city to consider anything at a large publicly owned location now that is not a community center. And I also think when Mayor Wilders mentions City Hall on stilts above the parking lot, it sounds as though he's put some thought into this and that it's not a new idea for him. And I feel with the 30 to 40 years we've been waiting for a community center, if the idea of selling City Hall and keeping the property for the town of Englewood and benefiting the town of Englewood's community, I think it's worth taking the time to do a full consideration of that. After all the time that we've waited, after all the time that Liberty School has been empty, I think some extra time to consider using City Hall as its own financial engine is something that should be front and center for everyone on the council. Thank you.
Yes.
No one else has their hand raised.
Okay.
Mr. Cobb, if I may, just, I've been around the block a bunch of times, and I think Ms. Wharton touched on a chord that if there is, we got CARES funds and we have all kinds of things coming in. The city council opted to pass on marijuana despite the fact that people can still bring it in. If we can figure out how to pay for this so that whatever project the council deems appropriate, there is a reserve. I sent the communication to our state legislators asking them to reach the governor for more resource because there is surplus that's available there. We really do have an obligation to look at all the inventory of what we have in the city. And I just want to end, if I can, as mayor of the city. We have a new city manager who's dynamic and is trying and doing an extraordinary job. You should not be picking or allow anybody to pick on any official. If you have a question, state a question. But to allow somebody to continue to exasperate and say their comments is offensive, because that could be me that the person's screaming at. And it is me sometimes. So I would just ask as a courtesy that either Yancey or the council president mute somebody who steps out of line so they don't get the soapbox and offend the newcomer to our city hall, who's trying very hard to help. Thank you.
And I'm going to respond to Mayor Wells. I don't run the meeting. I chair the meeting, so I'm not able to do that. Yancey did mute or whatever. So, I will talk to Mr. Manat. And maybe you should do the same, Mayor, when you're marching with him, and that would help out.
Would be happy to.
Yeah. So, we will talk to him about that. Mr. Bailey, do we have anything? We don't have anything for close. Anybody wants to go to close?
No, so you close the public comment portion, and
I'll close the public comment portion of this meeting.
Move to adjourn.
And
second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Slahevka.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And good night, everybody. Be well.
Okay.
Be safe.
Yep.